Thank you so much, Marilyn, and welcome everyone. As Marilyn said, my name is Nikki Nordic, and it is my honor and privilege to be here this evening to be your moderator for the evening. Reading Marilyn's notes. Here we go. The Chamber has been advocating for businesses since 1973 and is responsible for seeking answers to questions and concerns of importance to their membership. Also, we are welcoming those who are watching at home. Do we have the YouTube up and running? Okay, well, welcome to you again in person. Before we begin tonight's forum, I would like to take a moment to explain the rules to which all candidates have agreed. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to make an opening statement before we proceed into the question and answer portion of tonight's event. On the topics presented by the Chamber and the City, each candidate will have 1 minute, 60 seconds to respond to a question. Next, questions collected from forum attendees will be directed towards the candidates in attendance this evening. At the time of registration, everyone was provided with the option of submitting questions. At the time during the forum, if someone was watching online, they could email, but they can't. So if you do want to email while you're sitting in the audience, you have the option as well. The email address is advocacy@airdrie.ca. And finally, each candidate will have 90 seconds to make a closing statement at the end of the program. This forum is structured in a manner that allows equal opportunity for all candidates to express their political views and plans for action and the effect this will have on businesses and the community of Airdrie as a whole. None of the candidates have any advanced knowledge of tonight's questions. In addition, timing will not allow for all questions to be answered. If your question is not asked, we encourage you to reach out to the candidates directly at the conclusion of the event this evening. Invitations to participants in the forum were issued, and Airdrie-East and Airdrie-Cochrane ridings and 4 candidates have accepted. Now, without further ado, I will introduce the list of the candidates. Please wave or stand up when I call your name in alphabetical order by last name. For Airdrie-East riding, we have Dan Nellis, representing the New Democratic Party. For Airdrie-East riding, we have Angela Pitt, representing the United Conservative Party. For the Airdrie-Cochrane riding, we have Sean Kluker, representing the New Democratic Party. And for the Airdrie-Cochrane riding, we have Peter Guthrie, representing the United Conservative Party. Now that the candidates have been introduced, let's begin. Before we get to the hot topics of the evening, each candidate will have 2 minutes to deliver an opening statement. Microphones will automatically be turned off right at the 2-minute mark. Order of names was automatically randomly generated. We'll begin with the candidates from Airdrie-East, and we will start with Angela Pitt, representing the United Conservative Party. Angela Pitt, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nikki. It's very nice to be here tonight. I'm a born and raised Airdronian, and now my husband and I are raising our 2 children here. I've had the opportunity to witness little Airdrie with no traffic lights become often the fastest growing city in Canada. I remember when Balzac was a garden center, a church, and a community hall, and now it's an important economic hub for our province, attracting major players like Amazon, Walmart, and so much more. I've been honored to represent the people of Airdrie for the past 8 years. With fast changes in our constituency, it's important to have a finger on the pulse of this community. I'm proud to have advocated for our needs. Things like healthcare. Airdrie, for the first time ever, made it in the last budget to start the planning process for a new healthcare facility. In the meantime, an $8 million renovation is underway at urgent care. Red alerts on EMS are non-existent. Quality of life and job satisfaction are returning for our frontline EMS workers, and Airdrie is getting the service it needs and deserves. Since our party formed government in 2019, we have had 4 new school projects announced. The expansion of St. Mark de Porres, which is the equivalent of a new high school, a new Francophone high school, and 2 more schools for Rocky View once they complete some preliminary work. Our government has partnered with the City of Airdrie to get to a solution to complete the 40th Avenue interchange, and then we'll move on to construction of a new upgraded interchange at the Balzac, making life better for constituents of Airdrie-East. Airdrie received $5.4 million to complete 2 housing projects, over $1 million in additional mental health funding, all while lowering taxes, providing relief for inflation caused by Justin Trudeau, and growing the Alberta economy. Rachel Notley hasn't stepped foot in Airdrie in the last 8 years. We're just, as her minister said, the town you drive through to get to Calgary. I've always advocated for Airdrie. I always will. I will help to move Airdrie and Alberta forward. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Dan Nellis, representing the New Democratic Party for Airdrie-East. Dan?
Well, thank you for having me today. My name is Dan Nellis, and I'm honored to be your Alberta NDP candidate here in Airdrie-East. I'm running because I love my community and want to expand my role in serving my community. I grew up here in Airdrie, and I'm raising my 5 kids here as well. I felt called to run because I believe you deserve better, and that I can help Airdrie-East become better. You deserve a leader you can trust, not someone who flip-flops between positions as often as my kids ask me for snacks right after a meal, which is all the time, by the way. You deserve better health care, close to home, not half an hour down the highway, and a family doctor that you don't have to pay for. The biggest priority I hear about is health care. Our 24-hour urgent care center in Airdrie is precariously understaffed and under-resourced to the point where it couldn't meet its 24-hour mandate over the summer. The UCP's war with doctors and nurses has led to this crisis. And instead of fighting with doctors and nurses, we'll recruit them. Our Family Health Teams plan involves the largest healthcare professional recruitment campaign the province has ever seen. You deserve better jobs with better wages in an economy that is strong, resilient, and growing. That's why we have a plan to attract $20 billion in private sector capital investment to create more than 47,000 new jobs. Your kids deserve better education. As a former teacher and a member of your library board, I believe in quality education. The UCP cuts have left schools 2,000 teachers short, and we've gone 4 years without any new schools being built in our community, despite record student enrollment growth. Airdrie is being ignored by the UCP. Rachel Notley and the Alberta NDP have a track record of supporting public education and investing in education infrastructure. And finally, you deserve an MLA and a premier who actually listen to you and your community. Danielle Smith and the UCP are too risky and they have the wrong priorities, but we don't. Your priorities are ours.
Next, we'll hear from the candidates from the Airdrie-Cochrane region, and we are going to start with Peter Guthrie, representing the United Conservative Party. Pete?
Well, good evening. Thank you for having me. As everybody knows, there's an election upcoming and there's a lot at stake. These last 4 years have certainly been interesting and they haven't been without their challenges. That said, we just finished this year with a greater than $10 billion surplus. We paid off $30 billion in debt, put forward a balanced budget, including balanced budget legislation, and are forecasting a $2.4 billion surplus this year. We have the highest forecasted GDP growth, along with the lowest inflation rate in Canada. In March, 1/3 of all jobs in Canada were created right here in Alberta. 86,000 in the past 12 months, and more than 250,000 jobs since 2021. I'm told there are 100,000 jobs outstanding waiting to be filled. We are the lowest tax jurisdiction in Canada, and if elected, we are lowering personal taxes further, which translates up to $1,500 per family each year. We have been helping Albertans through affordability measures, such as fuel tax relief, natural gas and electricity rebates, and supports to food banks, age, child and family benefits, as well as income supports for seniors. As we continue to diversify our economy, we see net migration growing steadily from job growth in areas such as technology, film and entertainment, and in our resource sector, especially in the petrochemical industry. Over the past 4 years, Alberta has welcomed billions in investment in other areas such as venture capital, energy, agriculture, aviation, manufacturing, and more. Alberta is the best place to live, work, and raise a family. Our economy is strong. Our economic future looks bright under the UCP. So let's hold the line on May 29. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Sean Fluker, representing the New Democratic Party. Sean?
Yes, thank you. I'm Sean Fluker, and I am your Alberta NDP candidate for Airdrie-Cochrane. I bring decades of experience listening to the needs and concerns of others and advocating on their behalf. I'm trained as a lawyer. I've practiced law in the Calgary area for 27 years. My areas of practice included corporate commercial transactions, corporate finance, corporate capital markets, public participation, transparency in government, and litigation. Over the past 15 years, I have also served as a law professor and a teacher at the University of Calgary. My wife, Samantha, and I have lived in Cochrane since 2005, and we have raised our family there. Our 3 children have attended Rocky View Public Schools, and over the course of their time have engaged in various activities, including dance, gymnastics, drama, and minor hockey. And those activities have brought us to and from Airdrie and Cochrane over the years. Speaking personally, I enjoy spending time in the mountains for recreation. I've witnessed firsthand the rapid growth in our communities over the past 20 years, and with that growth comes challenges. Challenges that require a supportive and responsive provincial government on matters like healthcare, education, and municipal funding. A supportive provincial government to ensure that our communities remain the great places they are to live, work, play, and do business. Thank you.
We'll move on to the question and answer portion of tonight's event. Please note each candidate will have 1 minute, 60 seconds to answer each chamber question. I will call on each candidate randomly to respond. The following questions are questions that pertain directly to our Alberta Chamber of Commerce Vote Prosperity platform. I would now like to call upon Amy Ballman, Vice President of the Airdrie Chamber of Commerce, to come up and provide some background on the Vote Prosperity platform and to ask the first question. Amy, would you please join us on stage?
ACC advocacy is based on the grassroots policy process and research of the Alberta Chamber Network. Policy recommendations for government are brought forward each year from local business communities and considered by the provincial business community. Those adopted by the network are advocated to the appropriate orders of government. Vote Prosperity 2023 builds on the 4 pillar themes of the previous campaigns to position our province for continued economic growth and opportunity. The pillars are growing provincial trade, strengthening business competitiveness, building healthy communities, improving government accountability. The question is, Alberta is a global leader in reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and the province was the first government to set methane emissions targets in Canada. As environmental concerns continue to be a hot topic in Alberta and around the world, how will you and your party reduce Alberta's greenhouse gas emissions while minimizing risks to the business competitiveness?
The question will be directed to the Airdrie-East candidates. You will have 60 seconds to answer this question. We'll start with Dan Nellis, representing the New Democratic Party. Dan?
Well, thank you. Albertans are energy leaders, and in every sense of the word. Now, oil and gas is a proud part of our heritage, and we can't ignore that heritage. We do, however, have to make some commitments in order to bring Alberta along with the rest of the world. So, Rachel Notley is going to diversify our energy sector, making sure that Alberta is ready for the future of energy. We'll diversify within our oil and gas with a major boost to petrochemical refining in the heartland and also find new ways to use our bitumen. But reducing greenhouse gas emissions also means that we need to invest in our abundant wind and solar resources. We have to spur economic opportunity by creating investment in that sector and move towards a net zero economy by 2050.
Next, we'll ask Angela Pitt to answer the question, representing the United Conservative Party. Angela?
Thank you so much. There was a number of words that the NDP continued to use, like net zero. The heritage of Alberta's energy sector is, I think, frightening for people in this province that rely on Alberta's oil and gas to feed their families and heat their homes. I'm very concerned with NDP policy that's driven out investments in the oil and gas sector and in this province. My NDP candidate's not wrong when he talks about diversification. You get diversification by attracting investment into this province. You do that by having a low tax economy. We have lowered corporate taxes from NDP's 12% to 8%, which is bringing record high profits into this province. That's how you diversify economy. We have petrochemical plants coming into this province. We have a natural gas to hydrogen facility being built in Edmonton right now. Dow Chemicals is looking to invest $32 million in the industrial heartland. These are real good mortgage paying jobs for Albertans.
I would now like to call Marilyn Altus, the Executive Director of the Airdrie Chamber of Commerce, to come to the stage and ask the second question. Marilyn?
In many cases, businesses indicate it is easier to export internationally than it is to move goods to or through other Canadian provinces. Removing these barriers could result in an initial 3.8 lift to the country's real GDP, equaling more than $80 billion. How will you and your party remove interprovincial trade barriers and strengthen local supply chains?
This question will be directed to the Airdrie-Cochrane candidates. You will each have 60 seconds to answer this question. Peter Guthrie, you are up first, representing the United Conservative Party. Peter?
Yeah, I guess I would say that there's a number of ways that we could look at reducing trade barriers. I just bring forward some kind of personal experience that I had in traveling through the Department of Energy. We have a federal government that is obstructionist. We have countries such as Japan, Germany, we have Korea, the Philippines that are coming to Canada. They are asking for our help. They're asking for our assistance. The world wants to do business with Canada. We have a great reputation. We are the consumer or the supplier of choice. And we need to maintain that. We need to keep that up. And so what happened during the interaction here, we had Chancellor
Next, we'll hear from Sean Flicker, representing the New Democratic Party. Sean?
Thank you. Interprovincial trade, intergovernmental relations, all of these require Alberta to be seen as having a stable, competent, serious government. Not passing legislation like the Sovereignty Act and scaring away investment. Alberta needs to be seen as a jurisdiction that is stable, competent, and serious, and therefore willing to engage with other provinces, other nations, showing the rest of the world that we are a welcome place to do business. It's time to get back to that.
I would now like to call Jay Raimondo, Airdrie Chamber of Commerce Advocacy Chair, to ask the third question. Jay?
All right, so the question is, many newcomers and Albertans face barriers to fully participate in the economic opportunities this province offers and shares within its prosperity. streamlining recognition of credentials, expanding foreign students' options to work while studying and stay after graduation, improving access to quality childcare, and raising earning thresholds for individuals receiving H or GIS are all opportunities to strengthen our workforce and the economy. How will you and your party alleviate regulatory and socio-economic barriers to labor market participation?
This question will be directed to Airdrie-East candidates. You will have 60 seconds to answer this question, starting with Angela Pitt.
Jay, thank you for the question. That's a great question. I think that a lot of our strength comes from diversification and inclusion in our communities and in our workforce. It was almost like you were reading some of the Step Up for platform and the work that our government's already done to streamline credentials for newcomers to our communities, recognizing the hard work and education of people coming from other countries to fill the gap here. We're actively working with other experts in other communities. The Philippines, for example, is a great example of working with healthcare workers in the Philippines to streamline their credentials to come work in our healthcare system, addressing some of our labor shortages, and creating great environments for new Canadians. And I think we just need to continue to welcome
Next, we'll hear from Dan Nellis. Dan?
Your Alberta NDP is committed to ensuring that every person who wants to call Alberta home to work in the professional career that they train for have experience in it. Now, the UCP established some goals around immigration and settlement, but they didn't go far. Right now, Alberta's newcomer strategy is lacking timelines on transparency and reporting. So Alberta's NDP wants to revamp the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program to create faster access for targeted skilled workers, healthcare workers, and international students educated in Alberta and Canada. We also want to create a streamlined dashboard to provide clear information for everyone. We need to increase the eligibility and access to medical residencies for internationally trained medical graduates and improve foreign credentialing recognition by regulating timelines and creating a 6-month credentialing and immigration task force. We need to increase access to all of these programs in order to get these people to work and get them in our economy to participate.
The following are questions that pertain to the City of Airdrie municipal issues. I would now like to call upon Councillor Al Jones to ask the first 6 questions. Al?
The City of Airdrie will see a reduction in capital funding of approximately $4 million from the province when LGFF becomes effective in 2024. The LGFF transition fund introduced in budget 2023-2024 will help offset the impact of the formula chosen to distribute funds, but does nothing to address the impact of the overall decrease in the funding available to non-charter municipalities. The city's 10-year capital plan 2032 outlines more than $1 billion in capital projects. Thus, capital funding from the province will have a direct impact on how these projects will be financed. What will you do in either government or opposition to fight for basic capital funding for our high-growth municipality?
This question will be directed to the Airdrie-Cochrane candidates. You will each have 60 seconds to answer this question. Sean Fluker, you are answering first. Sean?
Thank you very much. I hear you, Airdrie. I know that as a fast-growing community, you are suffering from a significant capital infrastructure funding deficit. The UCP government has not only downloaded costs to municipalities, but has reduced funding to 2015 levels and intends to keep it that way. And Alberta NDP government is committed to restoring a predictable and stable funding framework for municipalities. And as an example of the sort of investments that we will make in your community, just today we announced major capital infusion into local communities. We call it the Hometown Alberta Program, and it's about investing in local community recreational infrastructure like the proposed recreation center budgeted in Southwest Airdrie over the next couple of years. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Pete Guthrie. Pete?
Yeah, thank you. Budget 23-23 is investing $2 billion over 3 years into municipal funding. MSI, which is now Local Government Fiscal Framework, LGFF. It has a baseline capital that is set at $722 million for 24-25. And the revenues for that LGFF, they're now indexed. And so they can rise and fall to match changes in provincial revenues. So as we prosper, so will municipalities. You know, through our fiscal framework that we put forward, we put forward a balanced budget legislation. The first half of a surplus is going to go towards debt repayment, but the remainder are going to go to several things. Could be debt repayment.
We have just found out that our YouTube live streaming is now working, so the rest of this event will be live on YouTube. And after the event, you can watch the recording from the Airdrie Chamber of Commerce website. There will be a link there on our events page. airdriechamber.ab.ca is our website. I would now like to call upon Councillor Ron Chapman to ask the next municipal question.
The question I have is around provincial partnership. How will you work in partnership with Airdrie to advance priority community needs? For example, the provincial agricultural building in East Lake Industrial is aging and a large urban parcel of provincial land is underutilized. Tell us how you will work with the Airdrie City Council to realize a higher and better use of this land to creatively meet community needs.
This question will be directed to the Airdrie-East candidates. You will each have 60 seconds to answer the question. Angela Pitt is first.
Thanks for the question. I'm curious as to what the city has planned for that parcel of land. I know there's been lots of talk over the years, so I look forward to a conversation on that and other partnership needs with the city. And of course, having regular communication with our city partners and our city council and their priorities, I think is an important step in the right direction in being able to work together. One example in particular is the ministers accepting new census documents to be able to allow Airdrie to prove its high growth numbers and have the province adapt to its funding needs as we move forward. I think it's equally important to encourage our municipal partners to increase the corporate tax income in the communities. We all need to be doing the best thing that we can to attract new businesses to our province and to our cities, and working together to achieve a
Next, we'll hear from Dan Nellis.
I think the most important thing to recognize in that question is that city and county councils are partners in governance. Voters expect councils and provincial governments to work together in order to get the job done for residents. The UCP's model seems, however, to be to vilify councils and the municipal staff that work for them. Having these folks register as lobbyists is an obscene idea that is going to put up red tape and barriers to getting work done for citizens. We can't do that. We have to provide a framework and a relationship that allows our two levels of government to work together to achieve goals like renovating provincial and municipal facilities and effectively utilizing them. So that is the goal of the Alberta NDP, to make sure that we work effectively with our municipal partners.
I would now like to call upon Deputy Mayor Coulson to ask the next municipal question.
Rocky View Foundation Hotel Conversion Project was awarded $4 million in funding and will provide 60 affordable housing units for seniors. Airdrie Housing Limited, a hotel conversion project application, was awarded $1.4 million in funding and will provide an additional 38 affordable housing units for individuals. Even with these important provincial investments, more than 2,700 units are required to meet the needs of Airdrie's residents struggling with housing affordability. Capital funds are needed to build and acquire affordable housing units in Airdrie. People who are experiencing affordable challenges include low-income seniors, people with activity limitations, young families, especially with newborns and lone parent households, underemployed and unemployed individuals, a worker earning minimum wage working 35 to 40 hours a week will earn $27,000 to $31,000 annually. This includes customer service, entry-level, administration, retail, food and beverage staff. What will you do to advocate for Airdrie's most vulnerable people, primarily families and youth, to have access to affordable housing in our community?
This question will be directed to the Airdrie-Cochrane candidates. You will each have 60 seconds to answer this question. First, we'll hear from Peter Guthrie.
Yeah, I think that right off the top in that question, we hit on exactly what Angela and I have been advocating for here all this time. Airdrie has seen tremendous growth, and I think one of the things that Airdrie is fortunate to have is two MLAs that work well together, and we work well together with the local municipality to drive home the needs of this area, with Airdrie having, and Cochrane for that matter, being in the top 10 growth in all of Canada, and certainly at the top here in Alberta. We need that. So the Rocky View Foundation, we're very proud of the fact that Rocky View has obtained $4 million. We work very hard and collaboratively with this administration and council.
Next, we'll hear from Sean Fluker.
Fluker.
I apologize. Next, we'll hear from Sean Fluker.
Thank you. Look, we have an affordability crisis in this province. We also have just spent the last 4 years with a government that has not invested in our communities. And the people who are feeling that the hardest are the people who need the most help. And so that is why the Alberta NDP government has already come out with proposals in relation to affordable housing. We have committed to increasing benefits for seniors. We have committed to reinstating an independent seniors advocate. We have announced a 50% increase in FCSS funding to municipalities to help those in our communities who are in need. Bottom line is, we're the government that can be trusted to address these issues. Thank you.
I would now like to call upon Deputy Mayor Coulson to ask the next municipal question.
Alberta municipalities, as required by the Municipal Government Act, must produce transparent 5-year capital plans outlining schedules to fund new and life cycle capital projects. These capital plans includes roads, bridges, pathways, water and wastewater infrastructure, community facilities like libraries, recreation, cultural and community amenities, parks and infrastructure for protective services, all of which are important in creating strong, vibrant, livable communities. population growth pressures coupled with high cost escalations and a proposed 37% decrease in the amount of capital funding that is available to municipalities like Airdrie is placing tremendous burdens on those municipalities absorbing the population growth the province is actively attracting. What will you do to help us obtain transparent funding for important transportation, recreation, culture, and protective service infrastructure?
This question will be directed to the Airdrie-East candidates. You will have 60 seconds to answer the question, starting with Daniel Nellis representing the New Democratic Party. Daniel?
So capital funding is incredibly important for municipalities to be able to grow and meet the needs of their citizens. I think about this 40th Avenue overpass that the UCP seems to tout as being a grand achievement. However, your municipal council, your Airdrie City Council, used property tax dollars to pay for $53 million of that piece of provincial infrastructure. The province only kicked in 11. A similar overpass up in Leduc, just up the highway, was more than majority funded by the provincial government. We need clear and transparent selection criteria so that municipalities can know and understand what they need to do in order to get the capital funding they need for projects in their cities. And so that they know what the priority is going to be compared to other places in the province. Why is Airdrie's priority less than a $400 million commitment to an arena in Calgary? How does that work?
Next, we'll hear from Angela Pitt representing the United Conservative Party. Angela?
Rachel Notley's minister thinks driving through Airdrie is the greatest thing about Airdrie, so I doubt any infrastructure projects are going to be granted approval under an NDP government. Additionally, the province front-loaded MSI funding for the municipalities to move to the LGFF model in the future to provide more predictable, sustainable funding. There is more work to be done to be able to fill the gap in the needs for the municipalities, and we've had those conversations, and there will be changes coming in the future. The census, of course, for the municipalities is an important piece, keeping up with those growth. Additional MSI funding was given to, in part of the deal for the 40th Avenue infrastructure, so it's very unfair to say that that's how things were funded. It was an accelerated project by the province, made a priority as part of the Get Back to Work during COVID, kick up the economy plan. I'm so sorry, my brain went there. But we are partnering with municipalities.
I would now like to call upon Councillor Tina Petro to ask the next municipal question. Councillor Petro?
Thank you. So across the province, and especially in the City of Airdrie, access to family physicians, walk-in clinics, preventative health supports, mental health supports, EMS services, and the primary healthcare system in general is extremely challenging. Many residents do not have a family doctor, and even if they do, they sometimes wait a considerable amount of time to see that doctor. Walk-in clinic access is sporadic and dependent upon doctor-clinic patient loads, and most clinics do not offer walk-in services in Airdrie at all. Without easy access to these services, our residents are left with no other option but to visit our already busy urgent care center for non-urgent issues. So what will you and your party do to advance residents' access to healthcare in Airdrie? Thank you.
This question will be directed to the Airdrie-Cochrane candidates. You will each have 60 seconds to answer this question. Peter Guthrie, representing the United Conservative Party, will go first. Peter?
Thank you. Improving healthcare in Alberta is one of our government's top priorities. We have top-notch quality of workers here in Alberta, the best in the country and arguably probably around the world. Now, as you may know, from the EMS perspective, we created a task force. One of the things that that task force was assigned to do was to evaluate the systems and processes, and we are now implementing that plan to reduce response times and improve care. We have been seeing those results thus far. Response times are improving in urban areas. We have seen a 44% improvement in responses. Red alerts are down significantly. In April, Edmonton had 10 minutes of red alerts compared to 295 in November. And in Calgary, that was 4 minutes of red alerts compared to 254.
Next, we'll hear from Sean Fluker representing the New Democratic Party. Sean?
Thank you. All Albertans deserve to be able to see or access a family doctor within a day or two, regardless of an ability to pay. We also have to ensure that Airdrie ambulances stay in Airdrie. And there are two primary ways that an Alberta NDP government is going to accomplish this. One, restore a positive and trusted working relationship between paramedics and their provincial government by ensuring they have a supportive working environment. And two, a primary piece of our campaign platform is our Family Health Teams plan, whereby we are going to ensure that at least 1 million Albertans have access to a family physician when they need it in their community. Thank you.
I would now like to call upon Councillor Darrell Bellick to ask the next question. Darrell? Councillor Bellick?
Good evening, everyone. I find it appropriate that I'm asking this question because my daughter is a school trustee. A little bit of background first. In recent government announcements, Airdrie was provided construction funding for long-term Franco-Sud Secondary School, design funding for a public K-8 school in Southwest Airdrie, planning funding for a much-needed new public high school. Prior to that, in 2021, an upgrade expansion was announced to St. Martin de Porres. Great. It has been 2 years now, and the construction of that has not begun yet. My question is, what will you do to secure more schools in a much more proactive way for Airdrie to accommodate students' growth as it happens, rather than several years later? Thank you.
This question will be directed to the Airdrie-East candidates. You will each have 60 seconds to answer the question. We'll start with Angela Pitt representing the United Conservative Party. Angela?
Great question. And there's been two parties in the 8 years that I've been representing this community. In the first 4 years, when the NDP were government, we got one school. In the 4 years that the UCP has been government, we've got 4 schools. Construction is underway in St. Martin de Porres. That's the equivalent of a brand new high school in the community of Airdrie. We're actively Band-Aid solution with portables, which I know is not a permanent solution. We're actively working with the school board to get those sites ready so that we can get shovels in the ground. There's a lot of work to do, but the projects are on the books. They're coming. We have high growth needs. We can continue to keep up with the growth in this community. There's been some really great progress right now, and we're just going to have to continue to keep moving forward. I think the municipal census and the numbers that we see with that is going to help to move forward with that advocacy work as well. Thanks.
Next, we'll hear from Dan Nellis representing the New Democratic Party. Dan?
With 5 children going through the school system, or soon to be going through the school system, we are acutely aware of the enrollment crisis that is being faced by our system today. Every year, Airdrie has enough student enrollment growth to justify a brand new school. And the UCP track record, quite poor. How many were there in this recent UCP budget for full construction funding? Maybe 14? Planning to make a plan doesn't get a school built. Rachel Motley's record of supporting public education infrastructure is clear. She supported and sponsored 240 schools built or modernized during her tenure as Premier. We plan on doing this again. I didn't wait to get into government to start advocating for schools in Airdrie. As soon as I became nominated as the NDP candidate, I started making those advocacy efforts, and we are making progress. You can trust the NDP to build schools in Airdrie.
volunteers have been working hard to group like questions from the public. We are now going to try to go through as many public questions as we can that time allows. Candidates will have 60 seconds to answer each question chosen tonight from your submissions. The candidates have been randomly broken into 2 groups for these next questions. I will call on each group for every second question. Candidate rotation was randomly generated. Volunteers, thank you to all of our volunteers tonight. Should we give them a round of applause? Our volunteers will unmute and mute the microphones, so for our candidates, please be ready. Our first question from the public: what is your platform for auto insurance, and is a cap or reduction in the plan? If so, how will you counter the fallout that happened last time companies were capped? This question will be directed to the Airdrie-Cochrane candidates. You will each have 60 seconds to answer this question. We'll start with Peter Guthrie, representing the United Conservative Party.
Yeah, thank you. From an insurance perspective, we know and understand that affordability is a problem. But yet, we have the lowest inflation rate in all of Canada here in Alberta. Our province, though, as a government, we have put a halt to insurance rates. There will be no more increases over the course of this year. I spent several months on a committee that was investigating all sorts of various options in this field, and we are certainly looking to make changes and to get a handle on cost overruns, and Alberta's feeling the pinch. Our province has put forward various affordability measures, like doing away with the fuel tax, with
Next, we'll hear from Sean Kluger, representing the New Democratic Party. Sean?
The Alberta NDP is committed to freezing auto insurance premiums. And the reason why we are committed to doing that is because affordability in Alberta today is a crisis. It is a crisis born out of 4 years of UCP government, and we are committed to making life more affordable for all Albertans, not only in relation to auto insurance premiums, but we will also be looking to cap or reduce power bills. We are restoring benefits to the people in our community who need it most, age recipients, seniors, family benefits. The Alberta NDP can be trusted and will solve Alberta's affordability crisis. Thank you.
Our next question from the public: what are you and your party doing to address the spike in cost of living over the last 2 years? This question will be addressed to the Airdrie-East candidates. You will each have 60 seconds to answer this question. Starting with Daniel Nellis, representing the New Democratic Party.
Well, it's an important question because inflation is absolutely out of control, and it's causing a lot of folks to have difficulties making ends meet. I don't know how many folks I've spoken to at the doors who've told me they've had trouble making rent, they've had trouble paying their extremely high power bills. Something needs to be done. And the UCP has increased so many costs on families by increasing taxes and taking the caps off of power prices, or having a deferred payday loan scheme for power prices. Did you get that, Bill? Increasing car insurance premiums and hiking tuition fees. So Alberta's NDP aims to make life more affordable. As my colleague has mentioned, yes, absolutely freezing car insurance premiums, but putting caps back on power bills, bringing those costs down. We also want to re-index and raise child and family benefits, seniors benefits, and age, making sure no Albertan is left behind.
Next, we'll hear from Angela Pitt, representing the United Conservative Party.
Thank you so much. It's uncanny how much the NDP want to spend your money. Capping auto insurance without a plan is a disaster. Capping electricity bills without a plan is a disaster. We have an affordability crisis caused by overspending of the federal government. And the NDP refused to stand up to these guys. We're being shamed for being proud Albertans. for inserting ourselves in Confederation. This is a shame. You know what's going to bring down the cost of living? Not voting for the NDP.
Our next question comes from a member of the audience who's 10 years old. What is your party's stance on getting more youth active in recreation and in the community? This question will be directed to the Airdrie-Cochrane candidates. You will each have 60 seconds to answer this question. Sean Flipper, you can go first.
Investing in our communities is a huge priority for myself and the Alberta NDP Party. Engaging with youth in our communities and connecting with them is also a significant priority for us. Supporting community programs that engage with youth in our community is an area that we have to return to. Our communities depend on our youth being engaged and having the opportunities they need to gain those experiences and succeed early in their life as they move on towards adulthood. We have proposed, we will reinstate the STEP program, which is the Student Employment Program, whereby the provincial government will subsidize summer employment for youth.
And next we'll hear from Peter Duffy.
Yeah, I'm a big sports fan, and my kids were heavily involved in sports. My daughter in dance, and my son in hockey, and they still love to do those things. And I think one of the problems has been our education system has moved away from putting an emphasis on sport, and I would like to see us bring back that focus. It doesn't matter the level of skill that you have, there's still that enjoyment that we can all get from it. My daughter, she was quite clumsy, but yet loved being out there throwing the ball, kicking the ball. I think we need to get back to that grassroots and bring it back into the education system and make it a full part, just as.
Our next question from the public. What is your party's plan to address the current housing crisis, including rent increases? This question is directed to the Airdrie-East candidates. You will each have 60 seconds to answer this question. We'll start with Dan Nellis.
So affordable housing is extremely important, and as we've discussed tonight, Airdrie does not have enough affordable housing units. Alberta's NDP is proposing to provide more than 8,500 new affordable housing units across the province, as well as implementing rent affordability programs for more than 11,000 families. This is vital in order for people to get access to places that they need to live, get control over their own household budgets, and be able to focus on meeting their other needs in their family. So one has to invest in affordable housing units in order to help them to meet their needs.
Next, we'll hear from Angela Pitt.
Thank you. I think it's important to increase supply. We have more houses on the market, more rental houses, lower rental prices. We have a supply issue right now. We have a supply chain issue right now. I know that there's many builders that are having issues getting the things that they need to build the houses that they need in their communities. I think rent control is a very dangerous path to go down. We're going to see less housing available if you start putting caps on those providing housing right now in the rental market. In terms of affordable housing, I think the record of the is pretty clear. And I found out that the Housing and Rocking Foundation had these projects and had this need. This funding provided in very short order. And I look forward to working with Ms. Powell to continue to make sure that those units are available. Let's work with builders, let's fix the supply chain. And let's let the market, the free market, help us out a little bit this area because we know it works.
question is from the public. Do you support the Alberta pension idea to replace the federal CPP? This question will be directed to the Airdrie-Cochrane candidates. You will each have 60 seconds to answer this question, starting with Pete Guthrie.
Thank you. We've been very clear on this issue that there will be no changes to this unless done by referendum. So I think people can rest at ease there. One of the things that we have done though as a province is look into the cost and the outsized portion that we are giving to the federal government. Right now, about $6 billion from Canada Pension is going to support other jurisdictions across the country. So the reason that this was looked into was to, one, get a handle on that, and two, to be able to provide a hammer for us when negotiating equalization with the federal government. So I'm never going to apologize for that, for trying to get a better deal for Alberta.
Next we'll hear from Sean Kluger.
Retirement has become a stressful time for too many Albertans under a UCP government. The Alberta NDP will enact legislation to ensure that no Alberta government can leave the Canada Pension Plan.
Our next question is from the public as well. Does your party plan to cap distribution fees on power consumption? As an example, power $180, distribution $260. This question will be directed to the Airdrie-East candidates. You will each have 60 seconds to answer this question, starting with Angela Pitt.
Perfect. I hate distribution fees like no other. I hear you loud and clear. I've taken a lot of phone calls from many of you that are frustrated that you're paying more in distribution than you're actually using in energy. This is a result of previous bad governments and previous bad investments by governments into areas in which they shouldn't be in. We overbuilt the system, and we're all going to pay for it, and that's where your distribution fees come from. We have significantly reduced the amount that we're building in distribution or in transmission lines right now to be able to do this, and there's a lot of work underway to be able to figure out how we need to be doing electricity and energy moving forward, because this isn't working. Right now we're offsetting the cost on your electricity bill just to get through, but there's a larger problem that we need to solve. I don't have the solution for that right now, but I can assure you that there's a lot of work being put into that, and we'll have some very exciting.
Next, we'll hear from Daniel Nellis.
So the detail on the ADP plan to cap utility rates involves the capping of the specific power rate, so the per gigajoule rate. My counterpart is correct, there is a larger problem. The larger problem is privatization without a plan. When the previous Conservative government privatized the electricity sector and let the free market reign, as it were, that resulted in the overbuild of the electricity grid. And that's problematic. That's problematic. You need to have a plan in order to proceed with advancements in developing the electricity grid. And so that's why the Alberta NDP wants to move forward with partnerships with electricity companies to figure out how to build and create thousands of good paying jobs with renewable energy sources such as solar and wind.
This concludes the question and answer portion of the evening. We'll now move on to closing statements from each candidate. One more question, just kidding. Two more questions. Okay. The question, does your party believe that the people of Alberta should pay for orphan well cleanup for companies making record profits? I apologize, I'll read it again. Does your party believe that the people of Alberta should pay for orphan well cleanup for companies making record profits? This question is going to go to the Airdrie-Cochrane candidates. We're going to start with Sean Pfluger.
The Alberta legislative framework implements what is called the polluter pays principle, which is to say, if you make a mess, you clean it up. The inactive and orphan well problem in Alberta is a very, very significant problem, and it certainly does need to be addressed. I would personally like to see a public investigation undertaken so that we can all better understand exactly what we are facing in relation to liability with respect to both inactive wells and facilities, and also those that are orphaned. In other words, facilities that are no longer owned by a solvent operator. And this is definitely a very complicated issue that is going to require serious attention. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Pete Guthrie.
Yeah, the province currently has the industry through the AER implemented mandatory spend limits from last year to this year on January 1st. Those mandatory spend limits went from 400 million to 700 million, a large jump. That is going to continue to go up by 9% per year. We are going to have significant decreases in those liabilities. That mandatory spend, depending upon the size of the company, ranges from anywhere from 3 to 7% of those liabilities. Now, the province has a series of wells, maybe 1,600, that have sumps. They are greater than 20 years inactive, and they're not yet being cleaned up. So various incentive programs are being looked at above and beyond mandatory spend.
What is your party's stand on paying for doctor visits? This question will be directed to the Airdrie-East candidates. You will each have 60 seconds to answer this question, starting with Dan Nellis.
If you don't know the answer to this question, Albertans deserve to be able to access the medical care that they need when they need it without paying a dime. Public health care is one of the greatest gifts that we have in our society, and we have to protect that. Danielle Smith has pontificated numerous times about a payment relationship with a doctor. The only kind of relationship I want with my doctor is a patient-doctor relationship. The Alberta MVP will ensure that you never pay to go to a family physician, ever.
Next, we'll hear from Angela Pitt.
Thank you so much. I'd like to talk about truth in advertising. The Premier has made it very clear, and so does the Canada Health Act, that it's illegal to pay to see a doctor unless you're accessing a private system in some way, shape, or form. Public health care is protected under federal law, and there is no pontification of things that happened years ago in a radio show that will change that today. There's been a healthcare signed guarantee. I'm really, really sick and tired of this mistruths in the ads by the NDP.
What is your party's stance on renewable energy?
This question will be directed to the Airdrie-Cochrane candidates. You will each have 60 seconds to answer this question, starting with Peter Guthrie, representing the United Conservative Party.
You know, we talked about the increase in transmission costs and how it's such a high portion of our electricity rate. And you can definitely thank the NDP for that. The NDP accelerated the phase out of coal, which cost companies billions of dollars. Additionally, to facilitate that, they had to buy out and pay $2.2 billion in power purchase agreements, all of which got passed on to the consumer. Now, since then, the renewable sector has been increasing, but as the power gets added to the system, the transmission costs are getting passed along to the ratepayer without having any opportunity for
Next, we'll hear from Sean Fluker representing the New Democratic Party.
Renewable energy represents a massive investment opportunity in this province. An opportunity that will allow us to expand our energy industry. So, in other words, invest in new sources of energy, whether it's solar or wind or geothermal, and build on our reputation as a leader in energy production in the world.
Do you support the Sovereignty Act given the opposition to it by the business community?
This question will be directed to the Airdrie-East candidates. You will each have 60 seconds to answer this question, starting with Angela Pitt representing the United Conservative Party.
Awesome, thanks, Nikki. Heck yeah, I support the Sovereignty Act. The Sovereignty Act inserts Alberta's place in Confederation. It stands up against the overreach of the federal government, which should never be there. There are other provinces that have enacted similar legislation. In the United States, there's an entire well-funded group paid for by the individual states to push back on the overreach of the federal government. This isn't unusual. This is insane. You have a hostile government right now in Ottawa, and Alberta's just simply standing up.
Next, we'll hear from Dan Nellis representing the New Democratic Party.
Alberta's businesses, small businesses and corporations expect their government to create a stable, predictable legislative environment in which they can do business. The Sovereignty Act is an offensive piece of legislation that's unlikely to be held up in any court of law. And furthermore, it deters people from investing in our province. That's unhelpful. We need to create the right legislative environment to attract investment to Alberta, not drive it away. So the Sovereignty Act under an Alberta NDP government will be repealed. Thank you.
Our fearless leader of the Chamber of Commerce just let me know that now I can start the closing remarks. This concludes the question and answer portion of the evening. We'll now move on to closing statements from each of our candidates. You will be given 90 seconds for your closing remarks. For the Airdrie-Cochrane riding, starting with Sean Fluker representing the New Democratic Party.
First of all, thank you for having me tonight. The point is simple. Albertans deserve a lot better from their government. Albertans deserve a stable, competent, serious government. Alberta needs a government that is committed to investing in the things that matter to Albertans. Those are things like public health care, accessibility to public health care in your community when you need it, regardless of your ability to pay. We need to invest in public education in our communities. We need to build schools in fast-growing cities like Airdrie. We need to invest in healthcare professionals. We need to restore positive working relationships with healthcare workers. And we need to get serious about addressing the cost of living crisis in our communities. And an Alberta NDP government is committed to doing all of those things and can be trusted to deliver. Thank you.
For the Airdrie-Cochrane riding, we're going to hear from Peter Guthrie, representing the United Conservative Party.
The first act of the NDP in 2015 was to impose the largest tax hike in Alberta history with their secret carbon tax. Our first act was to remove it. The NDP increased corporate taxes by 20%, chasing away investment and 180,000 jobs. The UCP reduced the corporate tax rate by 33%, attracting industry, diversifying our economy, and generating over 250,000 jobs. The NDP increased red tape, costing business over $2 billion and obtained an F grade from CFIB. The UCP attracted investment by reducing red tape by over 1/3 to receive an A on our report card. The NDP waged war against parental choice in education, and the UCP, well, we passed the Choice in Education Act to protect parental rights. Rachel Notley wants to give taxpayer-funded drugs to addicts and to decriminalize illicit drugs. The UCP built a recovery-oriented system becoming renowned for transforming the approach to addiction and mental health. And finally, the NDP's anti-fossil fuel stance is well documented as they support the just transition and appointed radicals to destroy from within. The UCP unapologetically supports the energy industry. To me, there is one choice, the UCP.
For the Airdrie-East riding, Dan Nellis, representing the New Democratic Party.
Folks, on May 29th, we can elect a government who wants to build a better future for Alberta. An Alberta where we can all look to the future with hope and optimism. In this election, Albertans can choose to build a stronger economy with better jobs and a brighter tomorrow. We can choose a more affordable Alberta where families come first and not rich donors and insiders. We can make public education better for our kids, and we can fix, improve, and protect public health care. We can support each other and build a province that respects the dignity and human rights that each and every one of us was born with. I want to earn your vote and get to work for you. Consider the record of the UCP and the UCP candidates here tonight. How have they used their time in office? What have they done for your community? Are you further ahead than you were 4 years ago? Is Airdrie? Or are you further behind? And if you ask me, we need an MLA all the time, not just in the 3 months leading up to an election. So I ask you, if you're undecided, know that Rachel Notley has your priorities at heart. Better healthcare, better education, and better jobs in a more affordable Alberta. And if you're a UCP voter who doesn't trust Danielle Smith, know this. Rachel and I share your love of this province, and we will serve with common sense and pragmatism. And unlike Danielle Smith, you can trust that we'll actually listen to Albertans. Together, I know that we can build that better future.
For the Airdrie-East riding, Angela Pitt, representing the United oh my goodness, Angela Pitt.
Thank you all so much for being here tonight and engaging in this important debate about our province's future. We've heard a lot tonight, but what really comes down to is this: who will move Alberta forward? You have the UCP, who are laser focused on creating opportunities for tomorrow for all Albertans through good paying jobs, low taxes, and a strong economy. And then you have the NDP, who want to go back to making life more expensive by raising your taxes and making promises they can't keep. Under the NDP, we saw an alarming trend of overspending and overtaxing that did nothing but stifle economic growth and put a burden on hardworking families and businesses. The NDP don't understand that the more you tax something, the less of it you get. And when businesses are overregulated and overtaxed, they simply take their jobs and their investments elsewhere. But we offer a different vision. We know that by reducing taxes and regulation, we can unleash the potential of our entrepreneurs and our businesses, create new jobs, and attract investment from around the world. So as you prepare to cast your votes, I ask you to think, what kind of future do you want for yourself? Do you want a province that is going backwards? Or do you want a province that is free to grow, to innovate, and to prosper? This election is about keeping Alberta moving forward, making Alberta stronger, safer, and more affordable. And I am proud to stand with the United Conservative Party as we build to make a better future for all Albertans. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for allowing me the privilege of being your moderator this evening. I would now like to invite Marilyn Almers, the Executive Director of the Airdrie Chamber of Commerce, to close our forum.
Thank you so much, Nikki. Exceptional job. We'll have you back at the next forum. And again, please join me in thanking all four candidates. It takes a significant amount of effort and time to put your name forward and stand as candidate. So thank you. Congratulations on your efforts in this. I would like to thank again our sponsor, Alberta Municipalities, for really taking the time to support this amazing community of Airdrie. I'd like to thank our chamber directors who participated, city councilors, our wonderful volunteers. Thank you to the public for all of your great questions and submissions. And of course, thank you to our chamber staff for their efforts this evening. While the chamber does not endorse any one candidate, it is our responsibility to help the public and our members to better understand the issues at stake in this upcoming provincial election and where candidates stand on business and municipal issues. If you have any additional questions that were not answered this evening, please reach out to your candidates. I'm sure they will be happy to oblige. This was recorded. The majority of this evening was recorded, so please share this link with your friends, family, colleagues. It will be posted on the Airdrie Chamber website within the next 24 hours. And of course, we do invite candidates, if they are willing, to stay behind for a public meet and greet, but we will be closing the venue shortly after 9:15. And again, thank you so much for attending this event. And we encourage you all on May 29th to cast your vote for a better Alberta. Thank you all for attending. Have a wonderful evening.